Welcome to Fulfilling This Belly Sting, a show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Like that.
God Morgan, and happy Monday. Happy Mani's Day to you. I hope this weekend you were able to rejuvenate, bring back those energies, and heal both your mind and your heart. This week we start a brand new week of experiences that hopefully will bring us intellect and knowledge in hopes of building our wisdom. Today we celebrate the Norse god Mani, who in ancient Norse we would have recognized him as the moon. Now, Mani, of course, being the brother of Sol, Mani brought into our existence this idea of dark energy and its value. Now, dark energy is not evil or bad or nothing like that. Dark energy is simply a placeholder at which to provide us space to illuminate. Remember, illumination is this process of gaining intellect, gaining experiences that further the building of our wisdom, both our mental wisdom and our emotional wisdom. They're two different things, but ultimately they're connected through our major experiences. Before we get started on money, I want to say thank you to all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed us on all the multiple platforms that we produce this on. I want to say a huge thank you to those of you who have gone and visited our website. Your support is greatly appreciated. I also want to give a huge shout out to my friends and family there at New Reality TV, newrealitytv.com. Of course, a new streaming channel that produces a message of our intellect and those pieces that we need to become, to evolve, to move forward in our lives, to ultimately obtain a better mental space and a better emotional state. Those two are intrinsically linked. So it's wonderful to have a streaming channel dedicated to just a plethora of perspectives that can hopefully offer some intellect that we can use. For those of you who do have a few extra coins jingling in your pocket and need to put them to good use, by all means, hit up our tip jar. Those links can be found here on the video somewhere, as well as on our website, NorseWhispers.com. There you can find all kinds of information about me, my message, my teachings, the shows, a place to ask questions, get a dialogue started, and ultimately, for those of you who might be interested, we do have a life coaching a service available that maybe you can get a second opinion or a different perspective of that which you might be struggling with. So check out our website again, NorseWhispers.com/coaching. All right, so today we're talking about Mani, the Norse god, the moon, brother to Sol, the sun. Mani brought understanding of the dark energy, of bringing the dark energy. And what does the dark energy do to light? Well, of course, it provides a balance. This is so critical, the balance between illumination and the questions that drive future illumination. And that's really what we're talking about here. As Sol would begin her climb into the midday sky, Sol would bring us intellect beyond whatever we were willing to absorb and experience and actually bring into our intellect. As she began her sunset and we began to move into the period of time where we had Mani would then bring the balance to that light in helping us to arrange this intellect within our mind and to drive questions, to seek more. What do we need to know from that information to our evolution? So he provided a balance to his sister Sol. Now, for real interface here, we see where Sol is bringing us light and warmth and just the ability to experience a reality in front of us. As we began our descent into Mani's realm, we really began to get the questions, but more importantly, the heat of the day now began to kind of subside, and we went into a overall overnight lows, right? So the temperature was able to become balanced, right? So we had heat during the day and the cooler evening. So Mani provides a balance, and he provides this understanding of balance, a balance to his sister Sol, a balance to the intellect and all of the illumination that we'll receive during the daytime. And moving into the night, he's going to help us to process all of this illumination, to kind of begin to categorize it. And as we begin to categorize it, what comes from that is the questions, is how does this illumination, how does this intellect apply to these other scenarios in my life? And then we begin to kind of transition those things into questions that then continues the cycle as Mani begins to let go and Sol takes over. Sol is going to, of course, begin to answer those questions that we have. So we're constantly in this pattern of gaining illumination, getting questions, gaining illumination, gaining questions. This is really the cycle of the day, and this is really represented by the rune Yira. Yira, of course, being a cyclic event that occurs in our lives. One drove the other. In this case, we know that illumination should, as it comes into Mani's realm, should drive the questions. The questions should drive the illumination for the following day. So again, we have a cyclic event. Very Yira orientated. And that's really what Mani brings to us. Now, the good thing that I want to talk to you about is certainly embracing this path, this understanding. How do we do that? Well, you're going to experience a lifetime with your eyes open. During the day, we're experiencing reality and we're gaining intellect. We're gaining all of these pieces, all these pieces here, there, and everywhere, strung together through experiences, related experiences. And all of that is processing through our emotion into our memories. We then draw on those memories for future similarities, right? So when we have a situation arise in our life that we've seen before or we've experienced before, we kind of have some idea. Why? Because our imagination is going to kind of filter that information forward based on what it's seeing, what it's experiencing. So it's going to kind of begin to tie these together. It's critical that we understand that imagination is a big part of everything, of the way we experience life, the way we experience our reality. We've spoken before about when we receive our sensory input into our sensory inputs, it's going to pass through a filter first. And that filter, of course, is our mood, how we feel. Are we positive? Are we negative? What are we? So everything we receive is processed through this filter. As it's processed through the filter, it's dropped down into our heart. Our heart then provides some emotional response using the chemicals within our own body, the hormones. All of these things will be released from the heart into the bloodstream to represent what it thinks is this image that you just passed to it. So, biochemistry that moves from the heart back up to the brain, where it's then converted back into electricity or bioelectricity energy. That bioelectricity then is passed through from that process to the me gate. We remember that. Me gate is simply where we get to decide. We're not driven by anything else. We can decide how we feel. And if we don't like, if our mind doesn't like the energy that's been received, it can change it. It can just say, no, I don't want that. In much the same way that we can deny influential energies that come into our mind every minute of every day. And influential energies are always so. Our ability and willingness to deny those energies is kind of what makes us us. All right. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Once we clear the me gate, our imagery or our experience is then passed to memory. Our memories is shared between our physical mind and our spiritual self. There's a little spot between us, and those memories are shared between those two entities, if you will. And so when our experiences are now stored in memory and our spiritual self addresses that experience, it shares that experience with the entirety of the spiritual realm, which is where we, in our perspective of things, teach the deities. We teach other spiritual entities. We can teach other spiritual entities attached to physical forms. We can teach them our perspective. For those of us who are willing to take off our blinders and see this experience from another perspective, we're given the opportunity to begin to enlarge our view, our perspective of this thing, this event, this experience, whatever it is. We can begin to enlarge it when we stop saying everyone else is wrong. Everyone else doesn't see things the right way. When we begin to remove that egocentric kind of perspective on things, we can begin to remove this blinders, right? I find that many people have a particular set of blinders on at all times, whether it be the very staunch monotheistic worshippers, or whether it be those with the air of superiority. Either way, they're going to put blinders on. Their way is the right way, and other perspectives then have no value. The downside to this type of mental processing is that it misses all of existence. I'm always reminded of some of the greatest discussions I've had with individuals, and when we're speaking about where is this thing called a deity, and they describe him or her or them as infinite beings. Infinite. An infinite being, which means they're in everything all the time, right? That's infinite. So if my gods are infinite beings, they are everywhere all the time. And therefore, there's so many more ways than just a singular path. There's so many ways. There's so many experiences that we have in this lifetime that we can travel these paths and be in peace with those on other paths. We don't need, our path is no more right than anyone else's. Everyone's journey is as unique as they are. So we simply have to be willing to take off our blinders and be willing to see the remaining perspectives. And that's really what we're talking about here, is taking off those blinders. Those blinders can cause more problems than they're worth. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about how you can use the powers of money to move forward in your life, to help you to understand the cyclic flow, but most importantly, what value you can receive from experiencing your reality using the mentality of this cyclic event. All right? So we'll be right back after this short message, and we'll continue forward.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me. It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
All right. Hey, welcome back, and thank you for taking a quick break with us. We so appreciate our family and friends at New Reality TV. So please check them out, newrealitytv.com. When we left, we had just talked about money and kind of what he represents in our life. And one of the things that we had talked about is, how does this apply to your life? So let's investigate that, shall we? Money is about questions. It's about constantly challenging intellectually that which we receive. So if we're given some level of intellect, we typically provide some level of authority to the source at which we're receiving that intellect from. And we do this for a multitude of scenarios within our lives, but we issue some level of authority. Instead of issuing blind authority, i.e. carte blanche, whatever we see on the internet, whatever we see on the TV being the ultimate truth, why not question it? Why? How? what does that do to me? And if that answers, or no, nothing, really no value, why are we investing an emotional state into it? So think about watching the news. And we're watching the news and we see an event going on halfway across the world. And does it have any value on us? Yes, it has a sympathetic value to us. We can focus our energies on those people affected, those people whose lives may be interrupted. We can pass energy to them by focusing. Remember, we're going to focus our energy on those people. But ultimately, that scenario is that scenario. It's an experience for those who are experiencing it. It has no value in our lives. Our lives, the universe will provide experiences that we need for our evolution. Right? So maybe everything's going really well for us and we're achieving some level of success. We're pretty happy, we're comfortable, we're content, and this event is occurring far away from us, where technically it won't have any influence on our lives at all. It's okay to issue sympathetic energies. It's not okay for us mentally to absorb this empathetic energy. So we're not absorbing, we're emitting, right? So we do not need to feel bad about us being in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? So if we were over there with those people, we would experience what they're experiencing. And we would experience those things because we're ready to experience them, whatever they are. Right? And so the world kind of puts events, experiences into people's lives, into a group of people's lives who are ready to receive it. It's a cyclic event. So, speaking of opening the door to the cyclic event, how do we manage that in our lives? Well, the best way I find to understand the cyclic event in our life is to journal. Journaling is simply making notes of your day. How you felt, what you saw, what you experienced, what life was like, and making mental notes so that we can refer back to them. Remember, as we process everything, it winds up in our memories. What a great way to reestablish an understanding of what we truly experienced if we have both our memories and our journals. And we can look at this journal and say, okay, well, this has value or doesn't. But what it also does, I find, is it allows us to establish what's on our mind, what's bearing down and creating, in some cases, a level of stress energy that we don't need, that we don't want. When we process, we talked about going through the mood, and the mood filter will then drop this imagery down to our heart, where biochemistry is created and then reconverted back into energy. Now, if we don't allow ourselves to go all the way to the bottom of the well of the self in our interpretation of this experience or this event, and it exits, I call it exiting left here, and it's passing energy to this next process. My grandparents referred to this process as the sheath of truth, but it's really just a space where the energy or biochemistry is then converted back into energy. All right. So, and when it's converted into energy, there's so much space in this place, right? The conversion process, because of the emotional connections at the bottom of the well of the self, our true virtues, our values, as that biochemistry moves up into this area of the brain where we're going to process this and begins to expand back into energy, we only have so much bandwidth that we can handle. And this is where a lot of people run into struggles with their mental processing and their mental state. As this energy expands into this space, some of this disconnect when we're shortcutting the heart is going to build up a level of silt along the bottom of this space. Thereby, as the energy is expanding, it can't expand into the silt, so it's going to expand upwards. And upwards is our cognitive space. A little bit of space at the top of this space that is reserved for applying cognitive thought to this energy. Notice many times we may be able to process different experiences, different emotional experiences, because we can chunk things down. We can kind of make them a little smaller and deal with them individually, thereby allowing us to not stress out, right? Other times there may be emotional experiences where that energy is building in the space. We remove the cognitive space because we're just overflowing, and we can't think our way through it. It seems to be overwhelming us. It's just, we can't break it down. We can't do anything with it. So it's really overwhelming. If this energy should happen to overfill the space and flow outside of this little processing space to the remainder of the brain, what we find is physiological symptoms. This is where it's just barely spilling over. You may get sweaty palms or sweaty inside the elbow, or maybe even a sweat. The more that spills over, the more we can get symptoms: anxiety attacks, panic attacks, paralyzation of fear. All of these things are going to occur as this energy is overfilling this space. And this is really what kind of creates then an imbalance in the brain, and we find ourselves struggling, mentally struggling, because we can't break it down. Now, we do also know that time, like Ura tells us, the time is a great healer, because as the energy is growing, the energy has a certain lifespan, if you will, where it's going to start kind of filtering back down. When it starts filtering back down, one of the first things that's going to come, we're going to go back in the box, firstly, and then that cognitive space is going to occur. And now we're able to think about it. So if you ever notice that if you're overwhelmed, say, in life, experiences, and you're just overwhelmed, and then you just take some time away from the situation, and you just kind of take those deep breaths. Maybe what you're allowing is that energy to then come back into where we can control it, where we can maintain it now, and we can manage where we're going to do with all the different pieces within that. So controlling the energy build in our brain is what really helps us to maintain our mental health. Not overstressing, not allowing that box to overfill, not allowing our cognitive space to be removed. Okay? So, one of the greatest tools that Mani teaches us is that by maintaining that cognitive space within the mind, we can control the emotional energies that are occurring in our experience, and thereby restoring and maintaining our mental health. So that's really what Mani brings to us. And we start the week with Mani. We start the week because when we set that baseline, we can now manage our week, right? We're going to allow a flow that we're in charge of, that we're in control of. So super critical. All right. Today is Mani's day. I'd love for you to take some time today. Meditate. Again, remember, meditation is simply intrinsic reflection. We're just looking inside instead of outside. Take some time and figure out how you can manage this space, this energy that's growing. Remember, you are ultimately the authority up here. You control the whole process. You can allow things to affect you or not. You can maintain that cognitive space. So you have a choice. All right? So this week, I hope that provides you with the opportunity to learn how to control your mental space, that you maintain control. All right? I wish you the very best Mani's Day. We will see you again tomorrow, where we will discuss the courage of fear. Because courage is, it's not the absence of fear. It's the management of it. So, we'll see you then. Love and light.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.